Article: Rock and roll. See also, Origins of rock and roll and rockabilly. Chuck Berry in a 1958 publicity photo. The foundations of rock music are in rock and roll, which originated in the United States during the late 1940s and early 1950s, and quickly spread to much of the rest of the world. Its immediate origins lay in a melding of various black musical genres of the time, including rhythm and blues and gospel music, with country and western. 25. In 1951, Cleveland, Ohio disc jockey Alan Freed began playing rhythm and blues music, then termed race music, for a multiracial audience, and is credited with first using the phrase rock and roll to describe the music. 26. Elvis Presley in a promotion shot for Jailhouse Rock in 1957. Debate surrounds the many recordings which have been suggested as the first rock and roll record. Contenders include Winneney Harris' Good Rocking Tonight, 1948, Winking Sad Smiley 27, Goy Carter's Rock a While, 1949, Winking Sad Smiley 28, Jimmy Preston's Rock the Joint, 1949, which was later covered by Bill Haley and his Comets in 1952, Winking Sad Smiley 29, and Rocket 88 by Jackie Brenston and his Delta Cats. In fact, Ike Turner and his band The Kings of Rhythm, recorded by Sam Phillips for Sun Records in 1951. 30. 4 years later, Bill Haley's Rock Around the Clock, 1955, became the first rock and roll song to top Billboard magazine's main sales and airplay charts, and opened the door worldwide for this new wave of popular culture. 31. 32. It also has been argued that That's All Right, Mama, 1954, Elvis Presley's first single for Sun Records in Memphis, could be the first rock and roll record. 33. But, at the same time, Big Joe Turner's Shake, Rattle and Roll, later covered by Haley, was already at the top of the Billboard R&B charts. Other artists with early rock and roll hits included Chuck Berry, Bo Diddley, Fats Domino, Little Richard, Jerry Lee Lewis, and Gene Vincent. 30. Soon rock and roll was the major force in American record sales, and crooners, such as Eddie Fisher, Perry Como, and Patti Page, who had dominated the previous decade of popular music, found their access to the pop charts significantly curtailed. 34. Rock and roll has been seen as leading to a number of distinct subgenres, including rockabilly, combining rock and roll with hillbilly country music, which was usually played and recorded in the mid-1950s by white singers such as Carl Perkins, Jerry Lee Lewis, Buddy Holly, and with the greatest commercial success, Elvis Presley. 35. Hispanic and Latino American movements in rock and roll, which would eventually lead to the success of Latin rock and Chicano rock within the U.S., began to rise in the Southwest, with rock and roll standard musician Richie Valens, and even those within other heritage genres, such as Ul Hurricane, along with his brothers Tiny Maury and Baby Gabby, as they began combining rock and roll with country western within traditional New Mexico music. 36. Other styles like doo-wop placed an emphasis on multipart vocal harmonies and backing lyrics, from which the genre later gained its name, which were usually supported with light instrumentation and had its origins in 1930s and 1940s African American vocal groups. 37. Acts like the Crows, the Penguins, the Eldorados and the Turbans all scored major hits, and groups like the Platters, with songs including The Great Pretender, 1955, 38, and the Coasters with humorous songs like Yakety Yak, 1958, 39, ranked among the most successful rock and roll acts of the period. 40. The era also saw the growth in popularity of the electric guitar, and the development of a specifically rock and roll style of playing through such exponents as Chuck Berry, Link Wray, and Scotty Moore. 41. The use of distortion, pioneered by electric blues guitarists such as Guitar Slim. 42. Willie Johnson and Pat Hare in the early 1950s. 43. Was popularized by Chuck Berry in the mid-1950s. 44. The use of power chords, pioneered by Willie Johnson and Pat Hare in the early 1950s. 43. Was popularized by Link Wray in the late 1950s. 45. In the United Kingdom, The trad jazz and folk movements brought visiting blues music artists to Britain. 46. Lonnie Donegan's 1955 hit Rock Island Line was a major influence and helped to develop the trend of skiffle music groups throughout the country, many of which, including John Lennon's Quarrymen, moved on to play rock and roll. 47. Commentators have traditionally perceived a decline of rock and roll in the late 1950s and early 1960s. By 1959, the death of Buddy Holly, the Big Bopper and Ritchie Valens in a plane crash, the departure of Elvis for the Army, the retirement of Little Richard to become a preacher, prosecutions of Jerry Lee Lewis and Chuck Berry and the breaking of the payola scandal, which implicated major figures, including Alan Freed, in bribery and corruption in promoting individual acts or songs, gave a sense that the rock and roll era established at that point had come to an end. 48. Pop rock and instrumental rock, edit. Main articles, Pop rock and instrumental rock. See also, doo-wop, British rock and roll, and soul music. The Everly Brothers in 2006. The term pop has been used since